Hello, and welcome to Working with a Monthly Budget. This training is developed by Encore, a company that develops training videos for a wide variety of audiences. This training is sponsored by Blue Foundation. We want to thank them for their generous contributions to this project. And note that Encore is solely responsible for the content of this training video. Let's start at the beginning, shall we? What is a budget anyway? A budget is the best way to see how well you're managing the money you have. You can create budgets on an annual basis, but for this training we're going to be creating a budget on a monthly basis. How much money do you have coming in every month? You start with what was left over the previous month. That's your starting point. And then we will list the various sources of income you might have. We're going to count your paychecks. If you work in a place where you receive tips, we'll count those. If you have support from the government or perhaps a retirement plan, a pension plan, we're going to count all of that and then add that up as income for that month. And then we have to consider how much money are you spending every month. You're going to have doctor bills, you're going to have rent perhaps, you're going to have car payments, you're going to have your phone subscription. You might have to buy tires on your vehicle. You will add up all the money you're spending every month. And then at the very end, you have your income listed and you have all of your expenses listed. Then you see how much money you have left over at the end of the month. Did you limit your spending so you do have money left over at the end of the month, or did you perhaps overspend for a particular month? The monthly budget process will give you the answers to these questions.
Hello there, my name is Nolan. I am going to start us off by talking about Excel file security and setup. This training video discusses a specific budgeting program that was created using Excel software, which is part of the Microsoft Office suite of products. So, the budgeting program will not work unless you have a recent desktop version of Excel. A desktop version of Excel refers to a program that is downloaded and installed on your local computer, laptop, or tablet. The budgeting program was not designed for, nor will it function on, the web-based version of Excel, which is opened in a browser like Edge, Chrome, Safari, or Firefox. After you download the file, locate the Downloads folder on your computer using the File Explorer app. The new budget program XLSM file should be at the top of the list of downloaded files. When you double-click the file to open it, you will see two messages from Excel. The first message asks if you really want to edit this file. Click the Enable Editing button. The second message informs you that the file might have a security risk. The program contains some Visual Basic code that makes it work properly. Unfortunately, hackers can hide viruses and other harmful instructions in Visual Basic code, which is why you see the warning. Don't worry, the budget program you download from the Encore website is safe, but we need to change one setting on the downloaded file to make the code work in the program. Close the budget program, and in the Downloads folder once again locate the new budget program XLSM file. Select the file, right-click, and select Properties from the File menu. At the bottom of the General tab on the Properties window, beside the Security setting, click the Unblock option to allow the Visual Basic code to function. Click the Apply button, then click OK. You only have to set this option to unblock the first time you are using a new downloaded budget program file. From then on, the Excel app remembers. To make sure the code remains safe, we recommend you do not obtain the budget program from a friend, family member, or any source other than Encore's website. And as I mentioned earlier, you must also have access to a desktop version of Microsoft Office 365. There are a few inexpensive ways you can acquire Microsoft Office. If you qualify as a teacher or student, you can obtain the Office 365 Education Edition at no cost. On the Internet, go to the Microsoft Office 365 Education website. Scroll down and look for the Frequently Asked Questions section. Expand the question. Who is eligible for the free Microsoft Office 365 A1 plan? Click the Get Office 365 A1 for free link to see if you qualify. Alternatively, the Office 365 Personal Edition is available by a subscription fee of $10 a month from the Microsoft.com website. Another option is to purchase a one-year license of the Personal Edition of Office 365 from the largest global shopping website. There are websites that offer a license that allows buyers to download a desktop version of Microsoft Office at a very reasonable cost. Make sure such websites are real and not a scam. There are videos on YouTube that explain how to identify a scam website. If your finances are limited, you might search the Internet to see if a legitimate website has older versions of Microsoft Office for sale. The budgeting program has been tested as far back as Office 2019, and it still functions properly. Generic software packages such as Office Suite, OpenOffice, Truly Office, and LibreOffice are free or inexpensive software products. They have applications that are generally compatible with Microsoft Excel. However, the Encore budget program contains Visual Basic code in it, which generic versions cannot run. To make sure the budget program functions as it should, use Microsoft's Excel app. When you have downloaded the budgeting program from the Encore website and have a recent desktop version of Microsoft Excel, you are ready to begin. Now I'm going to turn it over to Madison to talk about credit cards.
Hi, my name is Madison. Before we start creating practice monthly budgets, let's talk about credit cards. Credit cards have both advantages and disadvantages. One advantage is that many retail stores will not accept personal checks, but they will accept credit cards. Another advantage is that you can purchase items on the Internet using a credit card. The primary disadvantage is that it is very easy to overspend. And note that when you purchase expensive products on a credit card, you are actually borrowing money from the bank. You might be walking down a mall or looking on the Internet, and you cannot resist the urge to purchase one or more items that you really cannot afford. And because you do not see your list of credit card purchases every day, you might keep making more and more purchases. Then, when you receive your monthly credit card bill from the bank, it is likely to amount to far more than you thought it would. You might not be able to pay off the total amount you have borrowed because you do not have enough money to do so. So, you pay what you can afford. The bank will charge you interest on whatever amount you were not able to pay off. Interest is a fee that the bank adds to how much you owe them. The more you cannot pay off on your credit card debt, the more interest the bank charges you. After several months or years of purchasing more than you can pay off, the amount you owe the bank can be overwhelming. This monthly budget training will help you avoid borrowing more money on a credit card than you can pay off. So, let's take a look at a basic budgeting tool and start creating some practice monthly budgets.
This is the monthly budget program we're going to be using for this money management training. You'll notice right away that it's divided into 3 sections, each indicated by different colored backgrounds. The green background indicates income for the month and starts off with the money you have on hand, which is whatever you had left over from the previous month. Then you list all sources of income you have for the month in these 4 fields. Your income might include paychecks, you might have tips, you might have a retirement pension plan, or you might receive government benefits. All of those numbers are indicated and captured in the green area. The orange area indicates all the money you have going out of your bank account for a month. You might have rent or housing, groceries, electricity bills, and so forth. And let's look at the cell that says Type Expense Name here. Let's say last year your lawnmower broke. So this season you have to buy a new lawnmower. We will type lawnmower for the expense name and then type however much it cost here. You should know that all of the white cells on this budgeting tool can be modified in two different ways. First, you can double-click inside the white cell, delete the contents that are in the cell, and then type the income label, expense label, or numerical amount. Alternatively, and this is what we recommend, you select the cell, making sure you see the light green border around it, and simply start typing. If you use this method, you do not have to delete everything in the white cells before you type the new content. All of these income labels, expense labels, and dollar amounts can be modified by you. Feel free to customize this monthly budget program into something that works specifically for you. This budgeting tool takes the total of all of your income and starting cash and subtracts the expenses to come up with an ending balance. How much do you have left at the end of the month? This tool will help you answer that question. The last area of the budget program has a blue background, which contains 4 buttons. The Save As button opens the standard window for saving a file. First, when the window opens, you navigate to a specific folder where you want to save your budgeting files. I've created a folder called Budget by Month. Before we name this file, though, you must make sure that the file type you choose is a macro-enabled workbook. A macro is simply a series of instructions that are hidden behind the scenes in Excel. Each of these 4 buttons have macros that carry out certain instructions, which are indicated by the name of each button. So you must save this as a macro-enabled workbook, or the buttons will no longer work. The very first time you use the budgeting tool, we recommend you save it under a unique file name. Open the budgeting software tool, and before you make any changes to it, save it under the name Original. Then, to make certain that you are not making any changes to that original file, you need to save it again. We recommend the name Budget Experiments. One day, if you make so many changes that you lose track of what you started with, you can close the Budget Experiments file you were working in and once again open the original file, save it under a new name, and continue experimenting. When you know you have the Budget Experiments file open, not the original, you are ready to start typing income and expense labels and amounts. When you are confident that you have created a working budget for a specific month, we recommend you save the Budget Experiments file under a new name. It makes sense to save the file as the month and year you have been working on, and then click Save File. After you save that file, you can continue to experiment with numbers and then click Save anytime you want to make sure you don't lose your work. You can also clear all the numerical values by clicking the Clear button. A little window pops up that says, "Are you sure you want to clear all values?" It's asking you that question in case you created an actual budget for a month, but you forgot to save it. In that case, you click No to close the window, and then click the Save As button to save the file, and then you can go back and clear all the numerical values. But if you're just experimenting and you do want to reset all values to 0, then just click Yes and all values reset to 0. The Clear button does not reset the income or expense labels, just the dollar cells. After you start using this budgeting tool, you will probably establish regular income and expense patterns so their labels are not reset. When you click the Exit button, you not only close this budget program, but you also exit the Excel application. Now it's time to experiment with a sample budget. Before we begin experimenting with a sample budget, make sure you did not open the original file because that must remain untouched. Instead, if you have created the Budget Experiments file, that is the one you need to open. You can see that I have opened the Budget Experiments file, which will be the one we use for this first exercise. The first sample budget we create will end the month with money left over. As I discuss and enter values into the monthly budget program, you can watch me do what I describe, then pause the video so you can repeat the steps on your computer. Let's start on the green half of the program. We're going to be using whole dollar values because a lot of the experimentation will be estimates anyway. The starting account balance cell refers to the money you already have in your bank account when the month starts. Using the mouse pointer, click the amount cell. When a cell is selected, remember that it will have a green border around it. Type the number 1350 and press the Enter key. For the first Type Income Source label, select the cell and type 2 paychecks. Then type the combined amount for the paychecks, $2,600. For the second Type Income Source label, select the cell and type Sold Go-Kart to Neighbor. Then type the amount, $500. For the third Type Income Source label, select the cell and type Sale of Crafts on eBay. Type the amount, $250. Notice that the Total Funds Available cell adds all the income amounts together for a total of $4,700. Now you know how much money you have to work with for the month before the expenses are included. So, it's time to add your expenses for the month on the orange half of the screen. For this exercise, let's say your rent includes utilities such as electricity, water, and trash removal. Click the Rent Housing Amount cell to select it. Type the number 1100 as the usual average and press Enter. Notice that the amount you typed shows up in the monthly expense total cell in the green half of the screen. The program also tells you how much money you have left in the ending account balance cell. Now you're going to make educated guesses on how much you spend each month on groceries, not counting restaurants or fast food. How much do you spend at the grocery store each month? Click the empty groceries amount cell and type the number 500. Notice that the monthly expense total cell on the green half of the screen adds all the expenses as you type them in. For clothing, you usually don't spend much. It can include pants, shirts, shoes, underwear, gloves, jackets, and so on. For this month, you plan on spending $50 to purchase some new pants. Click the Clothes Amount cell, type the number 50, and press Enter. You usually have some medical expenses every month. Medical supplies include aspirins or Tylenol, medicine your doctor wants you to take, vitamins, cough drops, cotton swabs, and so on. Fortunately, your health insurance is covered by your employer, so doctor fees won't be added to this cell. This month, let's say you're going to spend $60 on medical supplies. Click the Medical Insurance Expenses Amount cell, type the number 60, then press Enter. You are also going to have to buy some cleaning supplies this month. you will need to purchase detergent for your washing machine, anti-static sheets for the dryer, and some bathroom cleaners. Click the Housing Cleaning Supplies amount cell, type the number 80, then press Enter. You do not own a vehicle, so you can leave the Vehicle Expenses, Insurance, and Fuel cell empty. Your phone service is provided by a family plan, so leave the phone service cell empty as well. This month, you plan on buying a video game, going to a couple of movies, and attending a concert that is coming to town. Let's say all of that costs $150. Click the Entertainment Amount cell, type the number 150, then press Enter. Let's say you average $1,600 on credit cards every month for various goods and services. Click the Credit Card Amount field, type 1600, and press Enter. Now let's talk about the Savings cell. We're going to talk about two kinds of savings accounts. It's always a good idea to put money into a savings account set aside for emergencies or other large expenses that you did not know about ahead of time. We will call this the traditional savings account. The unplanned expenses could include things like paying a large deductible for a surgical procedure, getting new brakes for a vehicle, or being able to purchase essentials if you lose your job and have to start looking for a new job. It's best to set aside 3 months of readily available income for unplanned expenses like these. The other kind of savings account to consider is one that makes money for you. Most savings accounts bring in a little income called interest, but a savings account that earns better than average income is called a high-yield savings account. When you add money to this kind of savings account, you want to leave it alone for as long as possible so the income it makes for you increases over time. Let's say you are just starting out as an independent adult. So the monthly amounts you put into these savings accounts might start small. For our sample budget, we're going to put $25 into each savings account for a total of $50 for the month. Click the Savings Amount cell, type 50, and press Enter. Remember, you can replace any expense label on the orange side to customize this budgeting tool to your actual expenses. Now let's take a look at the green side of the budgeting tool. The monthly expense total cell has added up all of the expenses from the orange side. You can see what all of your expenses will cost you for the month. If you have added the correct numbers during this exercise, the total expenses will be $3,590. You started the month with $1,350. Now, after adding all the income for the month and subtracting all expenses, you ended up with $1,110 at the end of the month. You have successfully managed your budget for the month. However, notice that you ended the month with less money than you started with. You might want to adjust some of the expenses to a lower number to try to end up with an amount that is closer to what you started with. When you are done looking over the numbers for the month, tap the Clear button and we'll work through another sample month together. The first budgeting exercise ended the month with a little money left over to start the next month. This time we're going to create a budget where we accidentally spend more money than we have and what we can do about it. For this exercise, we're in the final days of the month of July and we are planning our budget for the month of August. We're going to figure out the best way to manage the money we have. At the top of the orange section, let's type August 2026 expenses. Then let's press the Save As button and save the file as August 2026. Make sure the file type is the macro-enabled XLSM file type. We start the budget planning on the green side of the screen. Based on the expenses you know you have for this current month, you begin August 2026 with $450. Select the starting account balance cell, type 450, and press Enter. For August 2026, you will have 2 paychecks that total $2,100. Select the cell for income source number 1 and type 2 paychecks. Select the amount cell, type 2,100, and press Enter. You also know that in August, you have arranged to sell an old computer to a friend for $500. Select the cell for income source number 2 and type Sell Computer. Select the amount cell, type 500, and press Enter. You do not have any other known sources of income for August. You notice in the initial balance plus income field, you have $3,050 available for the whole month. Click the Save button to save your work so far. Now let's move to the orange side and add what expenses you know about. Your rent is $1,250 this month. Select the rent housing amount cell, type the number 1250, and press Enter. Your utilities are included with your rent for your apartment. Your monthly groceries average about $650. Select the groceries amount cell, type the number 650, and press Enter. You don't think you're going to have any clothing expenses this month, but you need a haircut. Your hairstylist charges $30 for a simple cut. Select the Clothes Personal Care amount cell, type 30, and press Enter. Your medical expenses always include the deductible for medications you purchase every month. The deductible for the 3 medicines you take comes to $65. Select the medical insurance expenses amount cell, type the number 65, and press Enter. For August, you plan on calling a carpet cleaning service because you spilled a pot of coffee on the carpet in the living room when you were filling up your cup. That, with the other cleaning expenses, will come to $120 for the month. Select the housing cleaning supplies amount cell, type the number 120, and press Enter. Your vehicle is paid off, but your insurance and fuel for the month is going to be $125. Select the vehicle expenses insurance amount cell, type the number 125, and press Enter. Your phone service costs $40 per month for a single line. Select the phone service amount cell, type 40, and press Enter. You've been planning to purchase a new computer game that releases next month, and it will cost $60. You also average about $60 a month on coffee or fast food. $60 for the game plus $60 for the fast food comes to $120. Select the entertainment amount cell, type 120, and press Enter. Based on your past history, you usually spend about $600 per month on your credit card for impulse purchases or unexpected expenses that arise. You try to pay off the credit card every month to avoid building up a large credit debt and also to avoid paying interest to the bank. Select the credit card amount cell, type 600, and press Enter. You've tried to put $25 into a traditional savings account and $25 into a high-yield savings account every month. Select the savings amount cell, type 50, and press Enter. You are planning on going to a concert with some friends in August, then going to a restaurant afterwards for a meal and some drinks. Based on a similar event last year, you estimate the total cost will be around $200. In the bottom expense row, select the expense label and type Concert. Select the amount cell, type 200, and press Enter. As far as you know, you've listed all the expenses for the month of August. Click the Save button to save your work so far. Now let's look at the green side of the screen. Your initial balance plus income was $3,050 for August, but the monthly expense total amount was $3,250 for the month. Your test budget for the month spends more money than you have. So you need to reduce the amount you plan on spending for the month. Not only do you want to avoid spending more money than you have, but you want to start September with at least as much money as you had to start August. So let's start with the $200 you overspent to bring the ending account balance up to zero. I will create a little calculation over here on the right and type 200. But you don't want to start September with zero, you want to start with $450. So we will also add $450 to bring the starting amount for September where you want it. Therefore, you need to see if there's a way to cut $650 from your planned expenses. You start by determining which expenses you have that you cannot change and which expenses you can. You cannot change your rent, medical expenses, vehicle expenses, because you use about the same amount of fuel each month to drive to work, and your phone service. Just about anything else can change if it had to. Let's start by prioritizing the optional expenses. You already try to save money at the grocery store by purchasing food with generic labels whenever you can, so we are not going to change the $650 for groceries. Also, you have waited too long for a haircut already, so you prefer not to push that back another month. You decide you might want to try to clean the carpet yourself using carpet cleansers and brushes you already have. If you do it yourself, it will save you $100. Select the Household Cleaning Supplies amount cell, reduce the amount to 20, and press Enter. You also decide you can wait a month to purchase that new computer game you've been waiting for, which will save you $60. Select the Entertainment Amount cell, reduce the amount to 60, and press Enter. You look down at the bottom of the expense side of the screen, and you realize you're not going to be able to go to the concert with your friends. It is a difficult choice, but it would make a big difference in the money you spend for August. So, select the concert amount cell, type 0, and press Enter. You go back up to look at the credit card expenses and decide you have to be extra careful with impulse spending. So, you research the past few months to see what your spending habits have been on the credit card. You notice you are spending almost $100 a month on drive-through coffee and a pastry. You didn't count this previously because you were not aware it was a trend in your spending. You also see that you normally spend $50 per month at garage sales and flea markets, which you can eliminate for August. Finally, your credit card review reveals that you have been spending around $50 a month gambling at the casino, which you did not count when you typed the amount for entertainment on the orange side of the budget program. If you add the coffee and pastries, the garage sales, and gambling, it comes to $200. So you can reduce the amount to $400. Select the credit card amount cell, type 400, and press Enter. Go ahead and click the Save button again. You notice that even with all those reductions in expenses, you still won't have as much going into September as you started with in August. You have some money in your savings account, but you don't count that as spendable income because it would defeat its purpose if you spent money from it every month. You also do not want to skip a month of putting money away into your savings accounts because it would be too easy to fall into the pattern of not putting anything in there anymore. This past week, your coworker offered to pay you $100 to mow the weeds in a vacant lot she owns. You give her a call to make sure the offer is still good for the next month, and she says it is. Select the Type Income Source number 3 label cell, type Mow Vacant Lot, and press Enter. Select the Money Amount cell, type 100, and press Enter. If you stick to the budget you have created for August, you will go into September with $460, a $10 improvement over what you started with for August. If you want to keep this budget plan for August, click Save one more time. Then, if you want to try to create the budget for September, click Clear to clear the values, change the budget label to September 2026, and press Save As. Next, Madison will provide some final tips on managing your money and review the things we have learned in this budgeting training so far.
Hello again. Madison here to mention a few final money management tips and then summarize what we have discussed in this training program. Let's talk about debit cards for a few minutes. A debit card works very much like writing personal checks. After you purchase something with a debit card, that amount will be deducted from your bank account within a day or two, which leads me to the first tip for managing a monthly budget. Tip number 1 is that if you have never used a credit card before, it might be a good idea to start with a debit card. Learn to make purchases you can afford at all times in order to avoid overspending. Tip number 2 is if you are going to use a credit card, try to pay it off every month. You should avoid building up a mountain of debt that will be difficult to pay off. Tip number 3 is to review and update your budget regularly. Every month is going to be a little bit different, so you need to look over the income and expenses frequently. At a minimum, people should be reviewing and making minor adjustments to their monthly budget on a weekly basis. Some experts even recommend reviewing a budget on a daily basis. Tip number 4 is that everyone who is spending money from the same bank account needs to review and update the budget together. Managing finances for 2 or more people who are using the money is not a one-person job. It helps to discuss and reach a consensus on purchases before the purchases take place. Tip number 5 is to have a very good idea about how much discretionary spending you do each month. Discretionary spending refers to spending on things that are not strictly necessary, such as restaurants, clothing that you do not need, gambling, garage sales, computer games, and so forth. It is best to set a specific limit on how much of this kind of spending you will do each month. Tip number 6 is to overestimate your food budget. It is common for people to make quick trips to the grocery store to purchase 1 or 2 things they didn't think of when they did their original food shopping for the week. Try to count every trip to the grocery store when you plan on a monthly food budget. Tip number 7 is to avoid comparing yourself to a friend or family member. Focus on the money you have and make purchases that are limited to that amount. Tip number 8 is to know where to go to get guidance and support when you need it. There are helpful websites and articles on the internet and books in the library that will provide suggestions and ideas for you. Tip number 9 is to stick to your budget. A budget shows you exactly how much money you have and how you are spending it. Plan ahead for what you are going to purchase and wait to make the purchase until your budget indicates you can afford it. Now let's review what we have covered in this training video. When you begin a budget for a new month, remember to avoid saving it with the name of the original budget program you downloaded. Save any new budget file under a new name before you start experimenting with numbers. Save all budget files as the XLSM, macro-enabled file type. Save your work often. Use past months to help identify your regular expenses and spending habits. Make it a practice to trim optional expenses when you need to. Use money from the traditional savings account only for true emergencies. Try to pay off your credit card every month. Don't be afraid to get help when you need it. Thank you for watching this budgeting training video made available from Encore. Take charge of your finances. You can do it. Goodbye for now.